Hello everybody, taking a look today at Garden Gnomes 3. Garden Gnomes 3 is a casual time management game. If you've never played one of the time management clicker games, essentially what it is in this style of games you have a list of objectives or tasks you have to do, and the tasks to complete them are relatively simple, but you have resources to manage. So it's not a matter of them being difficult to do, it's just a matter of finding out the best way to do it so that you're spending your resources correctly, so that you're getting things done before the timer completes. There are some time management games like this that are very complex, but Gnomes Garden is a very, very simple game, and I think you'll enjoy it. You start each level with a list of objectives given to you, a timer on the left-hand side that slowly goes down, and a colorful map full of building, obstacles, and other interactive objects. Once you've had a chance to review the objectives for each level, you start the game and that begins the timer going down. You typically start with one worker who can gather resources, remove roadblocks, and repair structures. You order your worker to do that simply by clicking on the structure or clicking on whatever it is you want him to gather. Some structures give resources, while other structures provide you with additional workers. Sometimes structures are blocking the way, so you can't proceed without repairing them. Your workers can collect resources such as food, lumbers, stones, and crystals. The only thing it costs to gather a resource is time. Now, removing roadblocks and repairing structures, those not only cost the time it takes your worker to do it, but they also consume resources. Structures can be upgraded so that they provide you additional resources. For example, if you have a farm, it typically gives you 2 food. If you take the time to upgrade it and invest some resources in it, well, now the farm will give you 4 food each time. You have to take a look at the objectives for completion and figure out what resources you need and plan out what order you need to gather the resources based on the objectives you have. Sometimes the resources will be sitting on the road, which means you can collect them for free, but the resource won't come back. Most of the resources are produced by structures on a time basis. For example, farms produce food every 10 seconds. The 10-second cycle doesn't begin again until you actually go and pick up that food. A farm can produce up to, I'm throwing this number out here, I don't remember, but I think it's 6 food a minute if you make sure that you have your worker just grabbing that food every 10 seconds. But if you're not on top of it, then that farm will just produce 1 food until you come and collect it over several minutes. And like I said, you can upgrade resources or upgrade structures to produce resources at a higher rate, but you've got to manage. Is it really worth the time invested to do that, or is it better just to collect things at the rate you're already getting them? The fun with the game is figuring out what resources to gather, the order to grab them in, and determining what order to upgrade your resource buildings. The timer keeps going down and there are star markings on the timer. The faster you finish the level, the more stars you get for completing it. There are different power-ups you get as the game progresses. They include movement buffs, building speed buffs, and temporarily stopping the countdown timer. The power-ups are on a cooldown, and they should be used every time they're available. There are goblins that will come and try to take your resources, which can be a real thorn in the side if they're taking the very specific resource you've been waiting on to pop up. The game is definitely on the easy side. There are only about maybe 4 levels in the entire game that I didn't manage to get a full 3-star rating on. This is not to say the game isn't fun. It did still require concentration to get 3 stars for most of the levels. Some of the last levels are a real test of time and resource management, and they did require a couple of attempts before I got them right. Each level takes anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes to complete, depending on the number of objectives. A complete playthrough of the game took me 3 hours and change. As far as graphics, the visuals are colorful, although very simple. There are static image cutscenes that you get in different portions of the game. It's not high art, but it's easy to see the game objectives, and the color palette really suits the fantasy nature of the game. The soundtrack could be described as something you'd hear playing at a Renaissance fair. The sound effects themselves do a good job of giving you gameplay cues, such as when buildings are being finished or objectives are being completed. I've skimmed over the surface of the resources and building types. There are a lot of them to manage, but the game does do a good job of introducing them slowly. This game was a surprise gem, and I'm glad I picked it up and tried it. I don't normally finish games, but I like this one enough to play it all the way through. I recommend this game to anyone who enjoys easy time and resource management games. It's a great game to play when you have a few minutes to kill and you don't want to spend the time to get invested in a longer game. It's also a very kid-friendly game, as there's no violence, there's no swearing, nothing like that. So it's also great for the young kids to play, and I don't think it would frustrate them. So overall, This game is very cheap. If you have any kind of interest in the genre, I'd highly recommend picking it up.